welcome back to another episode of Cleats Off the Couch, podcast made for the average Joe like me. Today, a couple things are a little different. We're in the bro tank, sporting the bad farmer's tan. It's football season in high school as a coach, just like it is NFL. Today, as we're recording this, NFL preseason happening, the NFL Hall of Fame game. Who is it? The Jaguars and the Raiders, I think it is. And if you are watching the video, who knows, you might hear it a little on the mic as well if you're just listening. Got the little guy here. Thunderstorm where I currently am, and during my normal recording time, he got woke up, and so he's sitting here with Dad as we are recording another episode today. We've been talking through one team from every division, and we made it through. In the first 8 episodes, we talked one team from each division, AFC, NFC, but because of the sake of time that I have in the midst of dadding this little guy and multiple other things that I'm undertaking at this time, I thought I wasn't going to do it this way. I wasn't going to talk about the entire division for each division, but we're going to do that from here on out. We talked about one team from each, and now we're going to bring in and talk about the rest of that division. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit more, get a picture for the AFC North. Not sure at the beginning of this what the end time will come out to be, if we'll still be around 20 minutes, or maybe there'll be some bonus time to this episode. I don't know. Yeah, there's football helmets. Like I said, you might get some added fun audio from the little guy. But guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I had finished in episode 1, had conversations about ending at around the 7-9 win mark. More so looking at a 9-win season. I think I said 7-9 when usually I give a 1-win swing. Now that I think about it, I don't know why that is the case, but it should have been an 8-10 win swing. I don't see Mike Tomlin getting his first losing season this year. I think that defense looks super good, and the offense is actually going to be solid. I just saw today a lot of things have changed since those first 8 episodes. It's amazing how quickly things change after how many things have already changed this year in the entire league, in the free agency and the draft, everything. And so the Steelers, I saw, just re-signed Deontay Johnson. And so that is a plus for the receiving core. Obviously, with everybody else they have, I think they'll be okay. It just depends on what they do with the quarterback situation. 8-10 wins is what we had talked about with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that brings us to the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns. A lot of my conversation in different TikTok lives, as well as in previous episodes of this podcast, talked a lot about the Browns and different things that were happening there. Still kind of up in the air with that. We have the 6-game suspension in now, but there's been an appeal from the NFL. So who knows what that's going to be. They're going to be pushing. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if we see a full hard push for a full season. I did read just this week that the NFL had put out to Deshaun Watson and his legal team the idea of 12 game suspension and 8 to 10 mil in fines, and that was declined, and then it went to where we are now with the 6 wins offered, and now we have an appeal. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not going to settle with 12-game suspension, if instead they're going to be pushing for a full year. And there's no doubt after last season and honestly this season with that 6, if he does the 6-game suspension, not going to be a lot of money lost. None lost to my knowledge last year as he sat out. And so I think they're going to be looking to penalize and get some money out of him, especially the massive contract that he has. So we'll see how that affects things. But right now, then, moving forward, if it is still only at a 6-game suspension, I do see some things changing. They had gone down a little bit for me in win projections for the Cleveland Browns, but with Deshaun Watson in weeks 7 through 18, I do think that changes some things. I think that still allows my Pittsburgh Steelers to get a win in Cleveland in week 3. I'm down for that. Still gives that potential. But yeah, that's where we are. You see us? We've got the Ravens, I think, are a team this year that there's some people that are overshooting in the way that they're going to be Super Bowl favorites. And then we got people who are completely they're out because they don't have really a passing game, et cetera, et cetera. I think the Ravens will be the Ravens. The Jim Harbaugh, is Jim John? I always screw that up. But Harbaugh is a great coach. He does excellent things. They've always got Justin Tucker in the close games. So I think they'll still have a great season. The Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to have a great season too. They have only improved in the new season. Man, the AFC North is going to be second to the AFC West. I think is going to be the most difficult year in football, difficult group of teams in football in 2022. Let's look at it this way. The Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to pull up their schedule, and Baltimore, guys, is a team that I think, second to the New York Jets, I think the Baltimore Ravens had the second best draft of this year, which kills me. I will say, I'm going to reiterate one thing I've already said, which is I was a proponent for shoring up the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 20 in the first round. I mean, it is what it is now, but they would have had a shot. They should have taken Linderbaum, the center, who the Ravens ended up taking at 25. So we'll see if that actually hurts us. I've seen some good things about his work ethic and about him, and so it kind of makes it even worse. I mean, good for him as an individual, but darn what the Steelers could have had. For the Ravens, they're going to be heavy on that run game. It's going to be injuries. That's going to be the biggest tell this year. Receiving wise, I mean, they're going to need to figure out something with what they're going to be doing outside. They're going to have Mark Andrews. They're going to have out of the backfield. So we'll see what they can do with that. I did see that thing about Marquise who got sent to Arizona or something like that. He now is being filed with charges for something or another. So that's, at least for the Ravens' sake, that's not on their shoulders. The Ravens are playing at the Jets, and then Miami, and then at New England, and then the Bills. Holy cow. The Ravens are playing the entire AFC North. Sorry, the entire AFC East in the first 4 weeks. I've never... Has anybody... Let me know in the comments. Let me know on one of the socials if you have ever seen this before. I have never seen a team play all 4 teams of a different division in 4 weeks, let alone the first 4 weeks. Man, this is going to be crazy. I do think the Ravens have the potential to go 3-1 in those first 4 weeks in the AFC East, but Miami has the potential to win games. I've talked before about I think they're going to underwhelm this year. That's just a gut feeling. It doesn't mean that they can't win big games. The Patriots and the Jets both are improved teams. The Patriots are Bill Belichick's team. They'll surprise us in different games. Will it be classified as surprising? They'll win certain games. The Jets will be surprising and electric in different games. I'm going to give the Ravens here 3-1, but I just want to put out there, I do see the potential of starting out 2-2. 2-2. But we'll see where else things go from here. They go week 5, first division game against the Bengals at home. I'm going to give the win to the Ravens in M&T Bank Stadium. I think they'll split with the Bengals this year. And then they'll play at New York. The Giants. Giants are not a great football team yet. I don't know. They just haven't made a lot of great moves, in my opinion. And so the Ravens... Yeah, more football. Yeah, you want to give your take? You think the Ravens will beat the Giants in week 6? Yeah, okay. I think so too. The Ravens beat the Giants, guys. And then in week 7, the Cleveland Browns. Now, here's the thing. That's going to be at home for the Ravens as well. If Deshaun is playing, I can see Cleveland splitting with the Ravens. If Deshaun is not playing, or he's pushed back to where he's not playing during week 7's game, then I see the Ravens winning both games. So for the sake of more football, buddy, you got it. We'll keep talking about it. Is the
red.
It's red, yeah. Going off of what we expect to happen, and I expect Deshaun Watson to be pushed by the commissioner wherever things are to go legally with the NFLPA trying to push back and stuff like that. I think we'll see at least a 12-game suspension, if not a full year, maybe even indefinite.
Football.
But we're going to have, football on 2 different screens. You got it. Football all over. We're going to give the win here at M&T Bank, regardless of the quarterback situation. We're going to give it to the Ravens, which is going to put them, honestly, what's that putting them at already? 6-1, and then they're going to be in Tampa. I think Tampa gets the win. So that puts them at 6-2, and then they're gonna be at New Orleans. I'm gonna give the win to New Orleans. New Orleans is at home. Their defense will play well. Their offense, I think, is going to play better than I've talked about before. They're another team that I'm coming around to, kind of like when I was talking about the Chargers. I'm coming around more and more to understand they're going to be good. And I think Jameis, man, if he can return to form before that injury last year, whoo, Michael Thomas back, oh my goodness, that could be a good football team. So I'm gonna give a loss to the Ravens, putting them coming in through 9 weeks, putting them at 6-3, and then in the Week 10 bye, they move forward to end out the season starting against the Panthers. They'll win against the Panthers, going 7-3, move down to Jacksonville, win there 8-3, and then they'll play the Broncos at home. I think the Broncos are a team that can come in, get a win. I'll give the win to Denver, which puts them at 8-4, and then they're going to travel to Pittsburgh. I can see a split happening with Pittsburgh. Nobody wants to say that, but I can see that definitely happening. It's Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Lamar Jackson doesn't have a good background against the Pittsburgh defense, so regardless of the issues that may occur in the quarterback position, maybe trying to figure stuff out at Week 14, I think we can see a split happening there. And so I'm going to give the win to Pittsburgh, putting them at 8-5, and then the win against Cleveland in Week 15, 9-5, and then Week 16 a win against Atlanta, putting them at 10-5, and then Pittsburgh and Cincy again, a 1-1 scenario there since I already gave the win to Baltimore against Cincy for the split. So what does that put us at? Does that put us at 10? Is that what I came out to? 10 wins? 11 wins? When I did this on TikTok Live, I apparently gave them 12 wins. So this is a one-game step back here. I had an 11 to 13 win swing for the Ravens. Here, I'm going to give them a 10 to 12 win swing. Still, double-digit wins. And, yeah, more football. 10 to 12 wins for the Baltimore Ravens is what I'm going to go with. We've got the 8 to 10 wins for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, it's going to be pretty muddy. It always is interdivision play for this division. And then we move to the Bengals. The Bengals, I think I have them to repeat this year, guys. I think the Bengals repeat. From what I have seen, they have only improved. They've only improved in their roster. And they ran for the Super Bowl last year. So now, do I think they'll reach the Super Bowl again this year? That's yet to be seen. I don't want to get ahead of conversation here, but we got the Bengals schedule. Now, the thing about the Bengals is, one, I really like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, guys, I think he has some future great, right now, quarterback capabilities. And Jamar Chase is huge for him. And then, yeah, there's a hat right there. And we're talking about the Bengals, and it's got the Bengals on it. But Week 1, the Bengals play Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think the Bengals win. I think the Bengals, I don't like to say this, I don't think it's a big thing in the division for this to happen, but I think the Bengals sweep the Steelers 2 years in a row. Unfortunately, I think they do. And so we're going to give the Bengals the win in Week 1, 1-0, and then they travel to Dallas. I think the Bengals win in Dallas. Dallas seems to be better outside of AT&T Stadium, and I think Dallas is overblown this year. That's one expect to hear from me when I talk about them that will be stepping back a little bit. But Bengals starting out 2-0, then they travel to the Jets, and then they're home against the Dolphins. I think the Bengals lose to one of those AFC East teams. Just like I said, I think the Ravens will potentially start out 2-2 instead of 3-1. I'm going to give them the 3-1. The Bengals here, no, I think that they will start out Week 3 or Week 4. They're going to lose against either Miami. Miami will fulfill their potential, or Jets. It'll be one of those, these are the Jets situations and games. So we're going to give that a 1-1 look. So we're going to give them 3-1 to start the season, and then they're going to travel to Baltimore. I think they lose in Baltimore, so we're going to go 3-2, and then they're going to travel to New Orleans. I think they get a win in New Orleans, especially after losing 2 games in those first 5. I think the Bengals win in Caesars Superdome against the New Orleans Saints, unlike the Ravens, especially after losing 2 out of the first 5 games. So they'll be 4-2 then, and then they travel back home, play Atlanta. Atlanta is one of those ones that could surprise us in moments, but I don't think they'll surprise us like the Jets or the Lions can. So Atlanta loses to the Bengals, and then that puts them at 5-2. Again, Deshaun Watson's situation. If My banking is that they expand the suspension. Is it going to be the whole year? I don't know about that, but week week
Football.
week 8 they'll play. Oh,
Football.
football. Week 8 they'll play against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. I think they split with Cleveland if they get Deshaun later in the year. I think he can't. Well, based upon what we've seen, I've been saying this too. I keep just going along with the narrative that Deshaun Watson is going to be great when he comes back. What name a player, if you can think of one who has played as good as they did prior to sitting out for a full season in the history of the NFL, please share it in comments, share it with me on Twitter. Let me know. Tag me. Tag Cleats Off the Couch. Because I don't know of a player who has done as good as they did when they played after taking a year off in football. So does Deshaun Watson actually return to form? That's my question. That's really my question. Anyway, so right now though, I think we get the Cleveland Browns split if they play later in the season. And so here in week 8, I'm going to give the win to the Bengals, and so that's gonna put them at 6-2, and then they're gonna play the Panthers, and I think the Panthers, especially if Baker plays to form like he has over the past couple years and healthy, then I think that could be a team that just like people for some reason make people, huh? Wait, what? Carolina? Either Carolina or Atlanta, I could see getting a win over the Bengals. So for now, we'll go 7-2 into the bye week, and then they're at Pittsburgh. They get a win there, 8-2. I hope I'm wrong, Pittsburgh. Prove me wrong, Pittsburgh. Come on, come on, 8-2, and then at Tennessee. I think Tennessee can get a win over the Bengals. I also think Tennessee may just flop. So I don't know. I don't know. So I'm gonna give the win. I'm gonna give the win to Tennessee here over the Bengals. Going. What does that make them? We had 7-2 in 8-2, so we got 8-3, and then Kansas City. I think Kansas City can get a win there in Paul Brown. I think that can even happen. But because of where I think we'll be by week 13, I think Kansas City's going to be taking a step back this year. I think they might even be the third of 3 teams making the playoffs from the AFC West. They I don't see them being the Chiefs that we've come to see. Defense will give some issues. Offensively, I think there's still going to be. I do think that Tyreek Hill is going to be missed. That speed. Valdez Scantling might help with some deep stuff. Juju will be consistent as if he can stay healthy and focused. So we'll see. Yeah, more football. And so I'm gonna give the win to the Bengals. I'm gonna give the win to the Bengals. We'll go 8-3 here. That doesn't sound right. 9-3. So that puts us at 9-3. And then Cleveland again, week 14. I'm gonna give a win to Cleveland. Second game against the Browns. Deshaun Watson back, plays like before. I think it's a loss for the Bengals. And then they travel. Raymond James. Tampa Bay is their best at home. And I think they went 7-1 last season in Tampa Bay. And so I'm going to give the win to Tampa, another loss for the Bengals. And then they're going to travel to New England for the Patriots. Guys, I wouldn't be surprised. Christmas Eve, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a surprise win by the Patriots over the Bengals. Week 17, week 18, they play the Bills and then the Ravens. I could see the Bengals getting a win regular season against the Bills, being an opportunity to be able to fight for maybe one of those top seeds going into the playoffs. But I could also see the Bills getting a win in regular season, and then in the playoffs they get knocked. I don't want to see that, but I think the Bills are everybody's favorite right now to win the Super Bowl this year, let alone make it there. And the Baltimore Ravens then week 18 in Cincinnati. I said that I think that they split. Earlier I gave the win to Baltimore. I'll give the win to Cincy here, which puts us at how many wins? That puts us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. For the TikTok live guys, I had the Cincinnati Bengals at originally 12 wins, tied with the Ravens with 11 to 13 wins here. I could see the swing happening towards 12 still. In fact, I'm going to keep an 11 to 13 win swing for the Cincinnati Bengals. I know going through here I just said 11, but there were some questionable ones I put up. I said about the potential surprise Christmas Eve win by the Patriots in Gillette. The Bills game in Week 17 could definitely swing either way. And I also said that I wouldn't be surprised if either the Jets or the Dolphins got a win over the Bengals in Week 3 or Week 4 to halt the undefeated season. So one of those could be wrong. One of those could be wrong, which could put us at 12 wins. I'm still going to stick with 11 to 13 win swing for the Cincinnati Bengals, 10 to 12 win swing for the Baltimore Ravens, and for the Cleveland Browns. That's where we go next to finish this out and kind of give a picture overall of where I think the rankings will be when it comes to the overall AFC North. The Cleveland Browns. I got a game on here on the other screen to keep baby Delkery busy watching the Steelers versus the Saints back in Week 16 in 2018. And so I don't remember who won this game. I don't remember how it went. Love Drew Brees. Love Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll be reminded of what's happening. But anyway, the Cleveland Browns, guys. So I know I've talked a lot about them for not being a Cleveland Browns fan, right? I've talked a lot about them. Talked a lot about what could be, what might be. Still don't know the Deshaun situation. I think that still deciphers a lot of things in two ways. Again, just reiterating, if he is pushed to be suspended all year, that changes things, as well as if he even comes back to form. Again, I'm really curious to see if anybody can name a player who came back as good, if not better, than they were when they took a year off from the NFL. So the Browns start off week 1 against the Carolina Panthers, and guys, I really think okay, hear me out on this. I think Baker Mayfield gets his revenge game week 1 against the Browns and just puts on a clinic. I think he has a great game. He has shown that he can be a great quarterback. The Browns lose week 1 against the Carolina Panthers. Plus, they're paying Baker to beat them in week 1, $550, $500,000. Oh, that's still one of the funniest things about that whole Baker situation. Week 2, the Browns play the Jets in Cleveland. And guys, one of the things that I have said, I think the Jets can surprise here, especially the quarterback situation. I think the Browns have potential. I mean, at minimum, we know that this is going to be a 6-week suspension for Deshaun. At minimum, I think that the Cleveland Browns could start out 2-4. I really do. A loss against Carolina, potential loss against the Jets, a loss at home against the Steelers. The Steelers come in, can grab one there in Cleveland. I'll give them a win at Atlanta. I'll give them a loss against the Chargers, and then I'll give them the win against the Jets. Win against the Jets, win against the Falcons, loss against the Patriots, the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Panthers. 2-4 to start the season. And now we'll talk with Deshaun in mind. At Baltimore in week 7, I think they lose even with Deshaun at previous form. M&T, it's hard to go in and win against the Ravens. And so 2-5. And then they play the Bengals. I think, again, if they have Deshaun Watson, he's in form, I think they can win. He could probably get one at home against the Bengals, split with the Bengals. And so I'm going to give them a win over the Bengals at home with that in mind, putting them at 3-6, 3-5. Week 9 bye, then they move against the Dolphins in Miami. I think they can get a win against them. We'll give that to them, 4-5, and then they play at Highmark Stadium against the Bills. They lose to the Bills, 4-6. They lose to the Buccaneers, 4-7. Although there's something about that just makes me think that Tampa Bay coming into Cleveland, they don't do as well on the road as they do at home. Tampa Bay, I could see a surprise win by Cleveland, and then have to deal with, just like Cowboys fans have to deal with Browns fans being like, we're making a comeback, we're gonna make this happen, right? I apologize if you listening are a Browns fan or a Cowboys fan, but you know I'm right. You know I'm right. But we're going to give them the 4-7. And then at Houston, they get the win 5-7. At Cincy, I gave them the win earlier. They get the loss here. That's 5-8. And then Baltimore, I think Baltimore sweeps Cleveland. Go 5-9. And then the New Orleans Saints, I think Cleveland can get a win, 6-9. And then at Washington, it's a random one that I've seen here in the North, but at Washington, I can see Cleveland getting a win there, putting them at, what is that, 6-9 or 7-9. And then at Pittsburgh, final game of the year. I'd said in the Steelers episode back in the first episode of Cleats Off the Couch that I could see the Steelers playing the Browns in Week 18. The Browns have an opportunity to give Tomlin his first losing season, coming into that game 8-8, but they won't do it. The Steelers will end up 9-8, and that would make Cleveland 7-10. So previously I had Cleveland at 7-9 wins, or even 8-10 wins with Deshaun. And then as I was seeing different stuff with the quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield being traded, all that kind of stuff, it kind of brought it down for me. And so I'm putting them at 6-8 wins on the season. 6-8 wins. And honestly, if we're real about this, there's potential with quarterback play to really bring them down another game or two than that. But there's also because they have a solid defense, guys. They have a great defense. They do have some pieces on offense, especially Nick Chubb, that running game. They could grab some more wins than that. But putting this in order, I've got the Bengals coming in number 1 in the AFC North this year with 11-13 wins. I've got the Baltimore Ravens coming in second with 10-12 wins. I've got the Steelers coming in third with 8-10 wins, and I've got the Cleveland Browns coming in with 6-8 wins. Rounding out the AFC North, Bengals win the division. Ravens potentially make the playoffs. Steelers miss the playoffs, but make a winning season, and the Browns miss the playoffs as well. So what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments what you guys think, how close I am, how far I'm off. Do you got the same order as me, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the AFC North? And next time, guys, we'll talk through the rest of the AFC East after we've already spent a lot of time talking about the excitement behind the New York Jets. So with that, means time is up. With that being said, guys, have a good one, and I will see you in the next episode.